Hello YouTube friends, Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Somebody just wrote to me and said that they had found an old 704B SunSun canister, just like this one, in storage in a garage, and they had fired it up. They were happy with the performance of the canister, but they were having some trouble with noise. They thought the canister was too noisy. Now I've run SunSuns for a good number of years, 4 of them actually, and noise has not been an issue. I'm going to go ahead and get into it with you here and give you some tips, my favorite tips, on how to keep canisters quiet, in particular SunSun canisters. Let's go. If this is your first time to the channel, why not take a moment now to hit that bell, and that way you'll get notifications whenever I post new material and when I go live, like on Saturdays for the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. So go ahead, get it out of the way, hit that sub button, and that way you'll be in the loop. Thank you. So the few times that I've had to actually quiet down a SunSun canister filter, it turned out to be a couple things in particular that when corrected, quieted the unit down. The first thing that could be going on is the impeller. And by that what I mean is the impeller in the unit may not be seated correctly. And I'll show you what I mean. This cover here, this cover has to be clamped down perfectly. And if it's not clamped down perfectly, you're going to get a bit of a what they would call cavitation, I believe, when you have, for example, like a rudder in a boat, you know, that isn't quite true. It's going to cavitate, create bubbles, and be very inefficient. So what will happen is it's not going to operate the way it's supposed to, and it's going to jiggle around. And that'll be particularly true for a unit with a big magnet like this. This is the magnet in the 704B. It's a good size. Now, be sure when you put this in that little nub there at the end goes into the hole that's in there. Tuck it in so you actually feel it go into that little hole. And the top black part here, that little black nub, has to go into this hole here. There's a hole right there, and that fits on perfectly. Then you turn this, and you have to turn it until you get a distinctive spot, and you know by looking at it, you can see on the threads, you can see where this little piece that sticks up, you can see where that actually fits, and you push down and turn, and you will get it exactly in place. If that's not in place, it's gonna move around, and you're gonna get vibration and racket, and it's going to be a problem. Now, the other thing, don't fill the baskets so that they're actually filled up to the point where the media that's in them is higher than the top of the basket. Why is that? Because the basket that fits on top of it, if your media is too high, the basket that fits on top is not going to be seated correctly. It's going to ride a little high because of all the extra media. So you don't want that. You don't want that extra media. You want this thing to fit down nice and snug. There should be no space between these baskets. And when it's inside the canister, there should be no wiggle. They should be rock solid with no wiggle. And if you don't do it that way, if you have too much media and they ride a little high, you're going to get this. Okay, so it's a massive unit. You don't need to put extra media in it. You know, go about, you know, maybe a quarter, half inch from the top, and you know, give yourself enough media so that when they're in there, they don't move. They're in there nice and solid. There's no movement. So the outside of it is sealed and water is moving through it the way it's supposed to. Another important point in keeping these types of units quiet is be sure that the unit is flat. If the unit is slightly off, let's say that the cord got under it, you're going to get some movement and vibration. Also be sure that the unit is not touching something like the side of your cabinet, or that the hoses are not actually touching something that is causing vibration in that object, and because of that you're getting sort of like a resonance or a sound or a vibration coming out of your cabinet. Okay, because these units, I mean, they're pumping a lot of water. The pump is using a lot, it's putting out a lot of energy, moving a lot, and so there is some vibration. That vibration can transfer to your cabinet. Okay, so be sure your impeller is seated correctly and the cover of the impeller housing is nicely, snugly shut down. Do not overfill the baskets. Be sure the baskets have a little bit of room at the top so that they fit nice and snug and snap into place, and there's no movement of those baskets. Also be sure that the unit is perfectly flat, and as a bonus tip, you can put a piece of rubber foam, maybe like a yoga mat type of object, under each of the corners of the unit or under the entire unit. Then place the whole unit in a big piece of Tupperware, and that way you'll be safeguarded against small leaks. Just a little bonus tip for you. Okay, so those are usually the reasons why a unit like this is going to make noise. Usually they're very, very quiet. The ones I've had, you can't even really hear them unless you have to like get close to make sure that they're on. And the last tip I'll give you is this: make sure that there's no air in the system. If there's air in the system, it's going to have to work harder. The impeller is moving in bubbles, and so it's not going to be pushing water as effectively as it can, and that could actually be creating some noise inside of the canister, with the water slushing around and not moving smoothly and the way it should because of the air bubbles. That's a real easy fix. All you have to do is just give the unit, after you've turned it on, and be sure you never turn it on unless it's full. Okay, be sure you fill it with water before you plug it in. But after you turn it on, you can tilt it just slightly like this and give it a little tap, like you're burping a baby. And what you'll notice is that a lot of air comes out of the output. And what that's going to do is remove the air from the canister. And then you'll have a nice and quiet canister that is actually going to be pushing more water and be more efficient. Okay? So those are my tips for quieting down a SunSun canister. You can probably apply it to probably any canister, really. Some canisters are self-priming. Some canisters will remove air, like a Fluval FX6 every 12 hours, shuts itself down, removes all the air, and then restarts. SunSuns don't have that kind of sophisticated circuitry. That's why they usually cost $200 less. So at any rate, those are my tips. Do you have some tips to keep a canister quiet? One of the big advantages of a canister is that they're out of sight and that they are quiet. What have you done to make your canisters more quiet, apart from putting them in a sealed cabinet? And share it below. We're always learning from each other on this channel. I appreciate you stopping by. I hope to see you on Saturday at the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. Until then, thank you so much for tuning in, my friend. You are appreciated. Bye-bye.